it's yours.
Okay, thank you. So today's presentation is an introduction to design science. So yes, the idea of the presentation is just, as the name said, just an introduction, so like a very high level view. And yes, the point is not to give like extreme details like about how it works, but mainly just rather maybe to let's say awake your curiosity if you already know about it a little bit, or if you don't know about it, just to explain to you what is it. um, okay, so yeah, for the sources for this presentation, I really uh, read about this book, The Design Science Methodology for Information Systems and Software Engineering by Waringa, and the Introduction to Design Science. So yes, I will talk a little bit about it at the end of this presentation. But yes, if you really want to read more about this topic, I really encourage you to to read about this. Okay, so what are we going to see today? So first, I will talk about the origins of design science. So where does it come from and why? I will tell you what is it, what are the main concept of it attached to it, the framework of design science, so depending on the context, then the design cycle, which is basically the actual methodology on how to apply design science for your potential research project. Then we will try to apply it through a study case with like an aerospace safety analysis app. And then at the end, I will tell you why I wanted to talk about design science and why I started to actually get interested into it. Okay, so but what are the origins of design science? So it's a relatively new topic. So it started in 1996 through like engineering science and science of the artificial. And the idea was really to try to um, fill the gap between academic research and real world uh, problems and solutions to these problems. Yeah, so as the demand for innovation increased, there arose the need for research methodology that not only studied problems but actively contributed to their resolutions. So really, that's where the issue comes from. So yeah, as we just saw in the slide before, design science is really a research methodology. So it's really like a guideline to start new research project, and really to yeah try to narrow what could be the different approach that what you take, and really it has a problem solving approach. So it covers different research areas, mainly information technologies. So it really comes from this area. So that's also why I wanted to. I thought it would be interesting for this presentation. And yes, the most maybe the most important one is the last point, which is that design science is the design and investigation of artifacts in context. So really, artifacts and context is really the core of design science. So an artifact is really just simply something. So it can really be many things. I will show in the next slides what I mean by this. Created by people for some practical purpose. So if we take a very simple example, so in this case, like we have a water wheel that is made, that is here to produce some energy from the river. So in this case, the artifact would be the water wheel itself. That is the artifact, and the context would be the river. So really, the idea of design science is the interaction between the artifact and its context. So, for example, in this case, or like if we remove the river from the water wheel, then the artifact is useless. It doesn't work anymore. Like you really need to put it into context to make it work. So of course it's really trivial example, but it's just to explain the concept of artifact and concept and context. Sorry. So artifact can be many things. It could be software component, system, hardware, organization, business process, service, method, and so on. And the context can also be many things. It can be actually many. They can sometimes be the exact same thing. So you also have software, hardware, organization, business processes. So all artifacts can be context, but you can see that all the context cannot be artifacts. So for example, people cannot be artifact. Goals, norms, budgets, these things cannot be artifacts. So really artifact is really the creation of anything that will add to that will have some purpose within its context. So in design science, there are uh, two research problems that are put in parallel, but and they are. It's important to know in which category you are, because depending on the category that you are, the process or like the cycle will differ. So the first one is the design problem. So a design problem is something that call for a change in the world, and the artifact will be a solution, a specification on how to do something. And if you have a design problem research, then it will be evaluated on its utility, goal contribution, so on. On the other hand, you have a knowledge question. And knowledge question is will ask how the world is currently, and it will provide you an answer. So basically, when we do state of the arts and things like this is knowledge question, and it will be evaluated on its truth, degree of certainty, and replicability. So we have two paradigms. So this design problems and knowledge question. But there is some kind of paradox, because you have for a design problem, you really often need like to investigate, and for a knowledge question, and for a knowledge question you will have some design issue. So if you see these boxes, we have for design problem, we are designing an artifact to improve a problem context, but then we have artifact and the context needs to be investigated. And answering knowledge questions about the artifact in context, then we need some knowledge and new design problem. So it's a bit like the snake that is trying to eat its own tail. So that is why we have some framework to design science. So there are two contexts to take into account when we do design science. So the first one is the social context. So you can see on the top. And basically, these are the stakeholders of the project. So very often you will have the sponsors, so the ones providing the money, but it can be anything else, like the manufacturers, customers, users. Sometimes it can be government, but there are also like bad stakeholders, like for example attackers, or people that or competition and things like this. So yeah, you will provide the design to the stakeholders, and in exchange they will give you some concrete goals and some budgets. On the other hand, you have some knowledge context. So it's all the things that you already know. So it can be mathematics, natural science, in our case, design specification, or all the things that we know in IT. And from this, we can use to either solve our design problem or question answer. So yeah, we can. So what the knowledge that we already have, it's called like the prior knowledge, and then from the design or the investigation that we do, we will add some knowledge with the research that we did. Okay, so that was for the framework, but now so there are actually like very precise guideline or like steps to follow to perform some design science. So it's really like an iterative cycle. So yeah, uh, uh, and it has like many tasks to it. So like the first one is the problem investigation. So you can ask the question, what phenomena must be improved and why? Then treatment design, design one or more artifacts that could treat the problem. So I really want to emphasize the word treatment. Usually we use solution, but the author of the book really emphasized that like when you create an artifact, it can lead to more design problems or more questions. So most of the time, an artifact is not a solution, but really just like it can be like a part of the solution. So the next step is the treatment validation. Would this design treat the problem? Treatment implementation, treat the problem with one of the design artifacts, and implementation evaluation. So how successful has the treatment been, and depending on this output, you can start all over again the issue. So that's really this cycle that we see here. So you would very likely start from the top right with the problem investigation. So you will ask, who are your stakeholders? What are their goals? Um, and what potentially would be the contribution to this goal, and what would be the effects? So that's really the part where you question the relevancy of your artifact. The second part is the treatment design. So that's really where you specify the requirements. So obviously it's a very important part, and how the requirements are contributing to the goals that were specified just before. Of course, one of the questions that you could ask yourself is that, are there already other product or the design, anything that already exists to solve this goal? And if yes, how can you improve it? And if not, then you will have to design new ones. Then you will have the treatment validation. So artifact in interaction with the context, what are the effects that are produced, and what would be the different trade-off for the artifacts. So of course here is really just like introduction, but in the design science methodology, each of these bullet point would have like a very specified methodology and to achieve the thing. And the last point is the treatment implementation. So that's really the part where you will put your artifact in the real world and test it and get feedback. And then depending on this feedback, then you can start the cycle again. So the design cycle tells us that to design a treatment, we must understand the problem to be treated, and to justify the choice for a treatment, we must validate it before it is implemented. And it also tells us that to learn from an implementation, we must evaluate it. So really, that's the key point of this design cycle. So of course, there are many challenges in design science. So main ones being that it really needs like a lot of collaboration and try to talk as much as possible with the different stakeholders. So mainly the domain experts or the investors of your app and so on. Okay, so I know it might be a bit broad and not so specific, so that's why I just wanted to take a very simple example, or like how we would apply design science on like a concrete app, and in this case, let's say an aerospace safety analysis application. So the first step is the problem investigation. So and identification of the problem. So let's say in this case, we have some issues in the industry, that some safety analysis, so failure hazard analysis and fault tree analysis, and their execution is not good enough, and there is a real demand in the industry for like user-friendly approach to these kind of things. So then in this case, the approach would be like to have some collaboration with safety experts and conduct a comprehensive review of existing safety analysis tools, and the identification of the need for an integrated applications. So that's the first step. The second step, sorry, is the treatment design. So the treatment artifact would be just simply the design and integration of aerospace safety analysis application that would incorporate this FHA and FTA modules, and collaboration with safety engineers to make sure that your modules are really aligned with the industry standards and like the requirements set by the regulation authorities. Then you would have the validation and implementation part. So you would evaluate the artifact to ensure that it's effective and identify problems in the safety analysis, and that there's then you would conduct simulation and assessment to validate the application's capability to streamline FHA and FTA. Yeah, and really you would implement it then in the real world scenario and see how it goes, and then of course you would get some feedback from your stakeholders. Yeah, finally, you would need to evaluate your method. So, for example, you would make assessment with application performance in terms of analysis, time reduction, and of course gather the feedback from the safety analyst to understand user satisfaction and so on. And yes, finally, the last step is to have some reflection about it. So to analyze the success of the treatment of your artifact, and yeah, to initiate a new iteration through the engineering cycle or design cycle based on the feedback. So here you would start the process all over again. So the motivation for this design science, or like, yeah, at least I'm still also learning a lot about it. So after, if you have some question, I hope you can I can answer them. Yes, but so I had my dissertation proposal defense, and one of the weak point, let's say, was that I had some methodology, but it was not rigorous enough in the sense that I didn't have any milestones or any like time frame or anything like this, or KPIs to really like support the methodology of my thesis. And one way that was found to solve this issue was to actually use design science. So I know like that in this introduction, I will use like very simple and examples, but really the idea behind this is really to have like some support and like a methodological framework to help you during your research. So in my case, it was for the thesis. It can be for any paper or any new research project that you would have, where this design science methodology could be useful. Yes, of course, the idea is really to generate a lot of artifacts that you can reuse later, to have some guideline on the research and milestone to follow. And of course, on the other hand, also for your potential investors or the people, the stakeholders that will give you the money to perform your research project, you would have actually a very rigorous way to present your research project and try to yeah, show them why your project is worth it. Yes, again, so as I said, it's very broad presentation. I just wanted you to introduce to this topic, as it's maybe you already know about it. For me, it's quite new, but yes, if you want to read more about it, I really encourage you to read this book. It's free on the PDF version. So yes, I really encourage you to read this book for more details about this topic. So that's it for me. So if you have any questions, please ask, and I will try to do my best to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Max, for the presentation. I maybe have a question. Are there any tools in which are you creating those design models, or
Yeah.
is it somehow interconnected to RDF or methodologies? Is there some methodology on how to do that?
For RDF and like yes, it could be definitely used. So from my point, it would be like for the thesis, which also involves ontology and RDFs. So yeah, definitely like the ontologies could be artifact generated from design science. One point that I didn't mention, even though it's quite obvious from the presentation, we are all more or less doing design science all the time, even though we don't know about it and we don't name it, but we are all more or less doing it a little bit. But really, this methodology is really just here to give you a really robust framework on how to um, achieve your research when you are not sure about how to generate like outputs of it. So I hope I answered your question.
Partly, yes. Thank you very much. So, are there any other questions?
Maybe I'll ask. I don't know how much of interest you are about this design science methodology. Whether you, I guess you are going to implement it in your thesis. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And so in context, well, I won't use this not context. In if you think of our project, can you imagine the phase of validation? If I understand this, this methodology requires validation before implementation. So, have you been thinking uh, about designing this validation process for the project itself, or does
Well,
it make sense? Does it feed your dissertation, or
yeah, so exactly. Yeah, actually not yet, but yeah, as I said, it's really recent topic for me. But yeah, actually, I really think that for example, our project or for the thesis, it could be useful. So I really need to dig more into like the specific steps like validation. But I'm actually quite hopeful that it would really help. So it's a really big topic. There are many things to see, and yeah, I will really dig into it. And as soon as I have like some answers or like some hints, I would definitely give you some feedback.
okay, okay? You don't have much time, I would say, since
Yeah.
how short is the project?
Yeah. So for our project, maybe it would be a bit too late. I can give you some feedback for my thesis.
Okay, okay, okay. Thanks.
So, no other questions? Doesn't look like that. So, I'm stopping the stream.